Hey everybody, it's MotherGoose27 and welcome back to my channel. So I just got out of Spider-Man No Way Home. I wasn't even planning to do a review for this movie, but it was just so amazing. I had to come home and I had to record it. It was amazing. Now, this is your spoiler warning. I'm going to be talking about basically everything within the film, from every single reveal to everything that actually happens from the beginning to the end, plus the end credits. This is your warning. I'm going to give you like 5 seconds to get out of here now if you haven't seen it yet. Okay, if you're still here, hopefully you've seen the movie. If I were to give a spoiler-free review, I would say this is my all-time favorite Marvel movie, hands down, without a doubt. This just left me speechless from beginning to end. It met every expectation I had for it. It was everything I wanted it to be and more. And I still am just having a little trouble emotionally processing everything that happened. It was absolutely amazing. Okay, so I really am getting to the spoiler stuff now. So if this really is your last chance, because I'm coming out hot. Okay, I want to talk about just some of the smaller things first before we get into the really big stuff. Starting with Ned has magic. It's just one of those little details in the film that blew my mind. I am just so happy that he has magic. He's going to have a much larger role in the MCU than I think we were really expecting, and I think potentially that it might have been foreshadowed just a little bit that he's going to be a villain. Maybe not totally, but at some point he's going to be a villain within these films, and I'm really excited to see that. But I'm just really happy for him overall. I haven't been caught up with Hawkeye, but I've heard rumors that it's also been confirming this as well, but we get our actual confirmation that the Netflix shows are canon within the MCU. We get Matt Murdock as Daredevil, as Spider-Man's lawyer, and I just love the fact that Spider-Man didn't know he was Daredevil. There's a moment where a rock gets thrown into Peter Parker's home and Daredevil catches it, or Matt Murdock, I should say, catches it before Spider-Man can, and Spider-Man's, I guess Peter Parker at this point, is just super shocked, and Matt Murdock's like, I'm a really good lawyer. I loved that. It was just a really small detail that just made this movie so much better. Wong is the Sorcerer Supreme. Just again, another little detail that I was just like, oh, well, that makes sense. Okay. I think we've all been expecting Doctor Strange to be the Sorcerer Supreme, but it makes sense. He was gone 4 or 5 years. And all of Strange's comments throughout the film, like, I don't want Wong to find out, or let's not let Wong find out. Just little stuff like that just made it so funny because Wong is technically Strange's boss, and I love that. But okay, before I get into the really big stuff, I think the last thing I want to talk about is just how I just really appreciated how much time they spent showing the world knowing Peter Parker's secret identity, and all the just like little things, like them not making it into MIT, the split between people who some think he's a superhero, some think he's a menace. I loved seeing J. Jonah Jameson in the Daily Bugle slandering Peter Parker's name. Of course, I hate that, but it added a lot more to the film. I loved Flash Thompson's reaction, his initial reaction, and then the fact that he wrote a whole book about it and pretended to be Peter Parker's best friend after bullying him for so long. I loved seeing Peter Parker go to school and seeing his teachers so divided, like some of them thinking he is a menace, some of them thinking he's a hero, and being open to Peter about this, and just how blunt they were, and they were all just so awkward, and it just added a lot more character to this film, and it really made Peter's decision to go to Doctor Strange just feel justified. And I know that's something a lot of people in the community were really, really worried about, because there were all these rumors like years ago that this was going to be a multiverse movie, and a lot of people were worried that after the ending of Far From Home, they were just going to skip over all that stuff, but they didn't. They actually included it, made it a big plot point, and it all still really worked well together. Let's talk about the moment where everything goes wrong. Peter goes to Doctor Strange. Wong tells them not to do the spell. They do the spell. We've all seen the trailers. We all know it was coming, but I really thought that it was just Peter annoying Doctor Strange that made him mess up the spell. But actually, like, before I watched it, like, seeing the trailers and stuff, but actually seeing Doctor Strange trying to adjust the spell to meet Peter's wishes, I think showed a lot of character for Doctor Strange. It showed that he actually cared about Peter. Now, should they have talked about these things before they started doing the spell? 1000%. And I think that also shows Doctor Strange is still pretty arrogant. He just assumed he knew what Peter wanted and started doing the spell instead of sitting and talking to him about exactly what he wanted. But then, as I said, we get to see him actually like care about Peter and try and adjust the spell a little bit to at least make some things okay, which then leads to the whole mess that is the movie. Everything, a mess is in what Peter has to go through. The movie's amazing. So now we're through it. Let's actually talk about it. So something that really surprised me was the fact that there were only 5 villains. Everyone was expecting the Sinister Six. Peaches has decided to be a part of this review. And I know a lot of people were really debating, is it going to be Ned? Is it going to be Toby's Harry Osborn? Is it going to be Venom? It was no one. And I was just really surprised by that. Do I think it's a bad decision? No, especially with the way things played out. We never got a necessary, like, Sinister Six, which I'll talk about here in a moment. But I was actually surprised by it. So it starts out with Dr. Octavius attacking Spider-Man, which their battle was great. It really showed off just how powerful Octavius is. But we've all seen the trailers. So I think the only thing I really want to talk about is the moment where he takes Peter's nanotech. And I know a lot of us were thinking that this was him and a sign for the others actually becoming a part of this world, like the universe morphing around them to add them into it. But really, it was just him stealing Peter's nanotech, which then let Peter take control of the arms, which I thought was an amazing twist. I really did not think that's how that battle was going to go, but it just worked so well. Green Goblin comes in. They're teleported away before they can actually fight. We get to see the Lizard. I was not expecting him to be captured. Again, just another small detail that I really loved. And they set up basically the rest of the film, or what I thought was going to be the rest of the film. Peter, MJ, and Ned working together to capture these villains. And that's what they do. They go fight these villains. Mainly, it's Electro and Sandman in the forest, and I really appreciated that they were together. I loved seeing Sandman actually working with Spider-Man. Like, I thought that was just a really sweet thing, and I was really happy to see it happen, which then it doesn't work out, as you all know. But again, I think that makes perfect sense once you realize this isn't my Peter Parker. Like, what's really going on here? But they capture those two. Aunt May calls Spider-Man, says, hey, one of the multiversal men are here. Peter goes, and it's Osborn, but it's actually Osborn. And I really think William Dafoe just killed it. He absolutely killed it, this movie. And, like, really, we really got to see Osborn struggling with this and how he didn't want to be this man. He didn't want to be the Green Goblin. And, of course, we get to see this in the Raimi Spider-Man films, but this just fits in perfectly and adds more to that. And I really think William Dafoe was probably my favorite actor out of this whole cast. He just did such a good job. Okay, the villains. At this point, all the villains are together. They were all captured, and I think something that really, really stuck out to me was the fact that a lot of their ideologies did not match. They were all doing what they did for different reasons, and you could see that inner strife amongst them. Osborn wants to correct his wrongs. Sandman wants to go home to see his daughter. Electro wants to live in this new world with this new power. Octavius just wants his arms back. Lizard wants to do what Lizard does, turn everyone into lizards. And I love that he offered to turn Electro into one. With so many villains, having each of them have so much character just made this film so much better. So let's talk about Spider-Man 3, the Raimi Spider-Man films. I actually really like Spider-Man 3. I know there's a lot of debate on if it's actually good or not, but I think it's great. But one of the complaints is it had too many villains, and none of them could really shine. And I think the writers and the cast and the crew took those, let's not say complaints, let's say critiques from Spider-Man 3, and really just put a lot of heart and soul into the villains for this one, and I really appreciate that. We got Green Goblin saying, "I'm somewhat of a scientist myself." Absolutely loved it. Just added so much to that scene. Aunt May. Aunt May played just such a large role in this. A lot larger than I think she has in other Spider-Man films. Like, don't get me wrong, she's always played an important role, but we really get to see her shine in this film, convincing Peter that he needs to help these villains, fighting to the very end to try and cure Green Goblin, giving Spider-Man that famous motto, "With great power comes great responsibility." Aunt May just killed it this film. As we're talking about Aunt May, she convinces Peter to actually help the villains, which leads to the Spider-Man and Strange fight. I cannot believe Spider-Man won. I thought he was going to get curb stomped in this fight. And the fact that his spider senses kept the box away from Strange, even when Peter wasn't in his body, was amazing. Like, it's something I never would have thought of, but seeing it just makes perfect sense. And getting to see all those iconic Doctor Strange visuals within the Spider-Man film was just a chef's kiss. From there, I know I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. From there, we get to see Spider-Man trying to cure these villains. I can't believe he let them out of their cage. He could have done most of this work there, but the fact that he trusted them enough to let them out, I wouldn't have. But of course, there wouldn't be a rest of the film if he hadn't. I love that he was able to completely cure Doc Ock. I think out of all of them, I'm really glad it was him. Green Goblin's betrayal was, I don't think to any of us surprising. Dr. Osborn can only have control for so long, but of course he had to get out right as he was about to cure the rest of them. Electro's turn was not surprising. Sandman's turn, on the other hand, I was really surprised with. I think that was, like, it was really cool getting to see him as a villain, but I think that might be my only real complaint about the film. He just wanted to go home, and he knew that Spider-Man wasn't going to send them home until they were all cured. So I think it would have been really nice to see him helping Spider-Man too. I don't know. Him being on the villain's side just felt a little off. And from there, we get Aunt May's death, which I think is one of the most powerful death scenes in any film. Like, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of powerful death scenes, but hers was just, it just left me speechless. And Spider-Man begging her to stay, to look at him, having Happy show up and having him get arrested, and him begging Peter to run, and having the SWAT team actually take shots at Peter. It just was such a powerful scene, and I didn't cry, but I definitely teared up, and, like, I'm actually surprised I didn't. I was just so shocked at it. And I think it gave Peter a lot more depth later on in the film, which actually leads to, I think, my favorite scene. It's just a quick scene of J. Jonah Jameson doing his stupid little newscast outside Aunt May's death scene, Happy's building, talking about how Spider-Man is a menace, and it cuts to Peter standing there watching it in the rain, and just the cinematography for that scene was beautiful. It really captured just how hopeless, how sad, how broken Peter was. Which then leads to, of course, the confirmation that Ned has magic. I've already talked about it. I'm not going to talk about it more, but we get the Andrew and Toby reveal, and the way they did it was perfect. Ned using the sling ring, we see a Spider-Man in the distance, him slowly start coming forward, and, like, I looked at it and I knew that wasn't Tom's suit, but then I was like, that doesn't look like Andrew or Toby's, and then it got closer and we could tell that it was Andrew. but just the energy in the room as Andrew took off his mask and it was revealed that he was Spider-Man. He was there. He was in it. Was just amazing. Them making him prove it made me laugh so hard. Like him just hanging there like, this isn't enough. This isn't enough for you. Ned's grandma asking him to take the cobwebs down. Just hilarious. Great scene. And then we get Ned doing it again, and we get Toby coming in. Also fantastic. The fact that Toby had actually done some research and was looking for Ned, MJ, and Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I really appreciated. He was the oldest and most experienced of the Spider-Man, so it made sense he would do his research and would actively be trying to find this universe's Spider-Man. Their little fight was funny because it wasn't really a fight, but they were clearly competing and clearly like showing off. I just really like that. Jump forward a little bit to, again, just one of, I think, the most powerful scenes in this film, where Tom Holland's Spider-Man, Ned and MJ find him, they give him a hug, which again was just super powerful. But then we get to see all three of them together, and Tom just like immediately knows who they are. There's no, oh, prove it to me. He just knows. He kind of snaps at Andrew and tells him, don't pretend like you know what I'm going through, which we all know he does, but Tom doesn't. And then Andrew and Toby just kind of talking about some of the things they've been through and the people they lost. All three of them just realizing, like, we have gone through so much, and there's that family bond, even though they're technically the same person, they're like family, that they share, and that almost instant connection between the three of them. They handled the three Spider-Man perfectly, absolutely perfectly. I don't think they could have done it any better. We get to see them building a plan. We get to hear them talking a little bit. We get the confirmation that Toby, his Peter Parker, and his MJ were able to work things out, which just warmed my heart so much. It also made me feel like if there was another Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, that they definitely would introduce MJ. Like, that really felt like them setting up MJ coming in, which probably will never happen, but it just felt like a setup, that scene between the two of them talking about if they had anyone. The fact that Tom and Andrew have webbing cartridges and Toby has actual webbing inside of him, of course they had to make a joke about it, and of course it was hilarious, and of course every time they brought it up just felt right. It felt funny, it felt awkward. Again, they just killed it. Okay, now the moment where I really think they were setting up Ned as a potential villain. Toby tells Ned that his best friend died in his arms after trying to kill him, and Ned, later tells Tom, I'm never gonna turn into a supervillain, after showing him that he had magic. And I don't know, it just really felt like they were foreshadowing Ned as a future villain. Maybe not a main villain, not a forever villain, but a villain at some point, which could be really interesting with the whole them not remembering Peter Parker thing, which we'll get to in a moment. That leads to, I think, my favorite moment in the entire film, and I think one of the best moments in the entire film. The three Spider-Man, it's right before their battle, and they're just talking. Like, they're sharing war stories. They're talking about the craziest villains they've fought. Toby talks about Venom, foreshadowing. Tom talks about Thanos and fighting in space. Andrew talks about the Rhino. Andrew kind of beats himself up a little bit, and there's this great moment where Toby's Peter Parker's just telling him, like, no, you're amazing, I need to hear you say it, you're amazing. I could watch an entire 12-season TV show of just the three of them talking to each other and not just being brothers, being family, which I think is something they really did well within this film. Okay, the final fight. Knocked it out of the park. I mean, like everything else in this film, absolutely amazing. I really loved the villains showing up at different times. I really appreciated that the three Spider-Men didn't really know how to work together. They've always kind of been a solo act. And then Tom, saying, I've actually worked with a team. Here's how we're going to do things. I've worked with the Avengers. Who's the Avengers? Just fantastic. Just the chemistry, the choreography, everything there just worked really well. I really loved seeing them messing each other up, like their webs getting caught on each other. Like, it just worked. And then we get this amazing moment after their pep talk of all three of them swinging out and swinging together, and it just looks amazing. And one by one, they cure the villains. And one by one, they get to have these really powerful moments. Toby and Andrew, to be more specific, with their villains. Like, Toby gets a moment with Sandman and Dr. Ock, and it's just really powerful. And Andrew gets a moment with Electro, and again, it's just very, very powerful. It didn't have to be. It didn't have to go this hard, but it did. The writers, the cast, the crew, the director, they just put their heart and soul into this film, and it just worked so well. And then Green Goblin shows up, messes everything up. Of course he does. And we get the final fight between Tom and Green Goblin, and I really, really thought there was a chance Tom was going to kill him. I mean, he really was trying, and I don't think we've ever seen that from Tom's Spider-Man yet, to see him actually trying to kill someone, and he just kicked the Goblin's butt. And I think this is where we get, again, just another extremely powerful moment from the film. Toby and Andrew, their Spider-Man, each get to make up for one of their biggest regrets. Andrew gets to save MJ. She's falling, and he catches her, and she's okay, and he begins to cry because he's thinking of Gwen, and it is just so powerful. And you could just see the joy and relief, and you can actually see him almost start to forgive himself. And then Toby actually stops Tom from killing Green Goblin. Tom was going to impale him with his glider, just like he died in the Raimi-verse. But Toby saves him, just like he wished he could have done all those years ago. And then I think that was the main purpose of him saving Green Goblin. But I also think he was able to stop Tom from giving into his anger like he did, which I think is also just as important. And then, of course, Green Goblin messed everything up. The multiverse was collapsing in upon itself, and Spider-Man made the ultimate sacrifice. Everyone forgot who he was. Or he asked Strange to do a spell to make everyone forget who Peter Parker is. I mean, he kind of had to, but the fact that he thought of it and willingly gave into it, willingly convinced Strange to do it, just made it, again, really, really powerful. I love that he got to say goodbye to Toby and Andrew, and his goodbye to MJ and Ned was just heartbreaking. Like, her telling him not to say I love you, like, wait until I can remember it. Again, just so powerful, so meaningful, so heartbreaking. They killed it. They absolutely killed it. And then the movie comes to a close, and there is something I want to bring up. Really, we just kind of get to see what his life is like after. We get to see him with Happy. We get to see him with MJ and Ned. Of course, they don't know who he is. But was the Band-Aid on her head before Peter noticed it? Because I felt like it wasn't, and I felt like it was a actual visual sign that they were beginning to start to remember him. I could be wrong. Maybe I just missed it, but that is something I wanted to bring up to you guys. Because I felt like it just wasn't there, and then it just magically was. And I don't know. What do you guys think? Am I just wrong? Did I just miss it before? Let me know in the comments below. Oh, there is something I did want to talk about with the Happy scene. Peter told Happy that he knew Aunt May through Spider-Man. And that didn't make Happy stop and think, wait, what? Like, of course he knew Aunt May was related to Spider-Man, but wouldn't he think, wait, how does he know Aunt May through Spider-Man? Like, nothing clicked with Happy. Like, it was a really great moment, and it was really important, but I did feel like there should have been at least some sort of reaction. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, end credits. End credits. Okay, the first end credit with Venom was great. The fact that he just was at a bar the whole time, like, he could have went to New York. He could have went to be a part of all this, but he just stayed at a bar and drank and talked to the bartender to figure out what was going on in this universe, and then he disappears. I absolutely loved it, but I kid you not, the just shock in the entire theater's voices when they saw the little bit of symbiote left. I mean, my jaw dropped. Everyone was gasping. There was cheering, laughing. The theater went wild. And then the next in-credit scene, we got to see the trailer for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Killed it. Super excited. That's going to be so, so good. What? Super excited for that. Anyway, overall, music amazing. Writing amazing. Acting amazing. Visual effects amazing. They killed it with this movie. 10 out of 10. My new favorite Marvel movie. I'm just so, so happy I got to see it day one. Anyway, what did you guys think about the movie? If you're still here, thank you so much for watching this long. Please consider leaving a like and subscribing. I'd really appreciate it. But no, seriously, I really want to know what you guys thought about the movie. Let's have a conversation in the comments below. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Mother Goose out.